What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with another look at recent sales for the Vintage Collection. As always, thank you for watching my channel. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like. And I've got two thank yous to mention before we get started. Laugh It Up Fuzzball70, he sent me a super chat, which is through YouTube, and I appreciate you supporting the channel with that super payment. That's like the third or fourth one that Laugh It Up Fuzzball70 has sent me, so thank you for that. And I also did get a new Patreon supporter. Dave FXX is a new Patreon supporter, so thank you for joining up. And I try to give back with Buy It Now alerts for the Vintage Collection, Vintage Kenner items, comic books. I just send out Buy It Now alerts to my Patreons, just to give them a heads up of stuff that got listed on eBay that I think looks like a pretty good deal. And I appreciate you guys supporting the channel. All right, we've got some really big Vintage Collection items that sold. As you can see by this thumbnail, several big boy grails sold here very recently. We've got the Jar Jar Binks and Carbonite Salacious Crumb, the Canadian TVC Yoda, and then the SDCC box set. I actually did find 3 different SDCC Death Star box sets that sold. So we're going to go through all those details. We're going to start off with maybe some characters that seem to be creeping up in price, or they had final sales prices either in Buy It Nows or auctions that kind of left me scratching my head. Like, ooh, that's a little higher than I expected. And then after that, we're going to take a look at some other ones that I thought were really good deals that maybe are a good time to pick up. So maybe stay away from the ones that seem to be jumping, and maybe look for the ones that are a good deal right now. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to have some vehicles, and then obviously the big boy grails at the end of the video. So let's take a look. All right, so these are all ones that I was a little surprised by or confused by as to why they continue to go up in price. Han Solo Yavin Ceremony. I found several different data points for Han Solo Yavin Ceremony that have really shocked me on price. This is VC42, and this card was fine, I guess, but I mean, it had a price sticker on the blister that was kind of torn off, and even despite that, it still sold for 85 pounds, which is 107 US dollars. Now, part of it might be because they're in the UK, and the dollar to pound conversion might be maybe shocking me a little bit, whereas 85 pounds might be the fair price over there in the UK. I don't know. But I think just given the sticker condition or the blister condition issues with the sticker that's kind of partially peeled off, I'm just a little confused by why that one is so high. And it's not like this is an outlier. Okay, I found several others that were all kind of in this price point, 100 to 125 US dollars for Han Solo Yavin Ceremony. So there you go there. This seller had a number of items that all sold in Buy It Nows that were all big boy prices. Now, in all fairness, they looked very case fresh. I mean, they were beautiful examples, and they were all the Eurozone card backs. The US cards with the blacked out stickers on the front of the card in the upper left and in the upper right, and then obviously on the back it's got the multi-language warning labels. But these cards were all really nice condition. Ben Quadraneros and Otaga 222 from the pod racing scene at the Phantom Menace. And shout out to Lucasfilm. They're bringing back the Phantom Menace to theaters, I believe May 25th, for the anniversary of the Phantom Menace's original release. So I'm kind of excited about that. I don't know about you. I mean, there's certain aspects to the movie that haven't aged well, but I do think that given the critical reception by the Star Wars community of the sequel trilogy, I do feel like the prequel trilogy has maybe, not for everybody, but to a certain segment, has gotten, our feelings about the prequel trilogy have maybe softened a little bit. I know that that's true for me. Of course, they're not perfect, but neither was the original trilogy, okay? Yeah, I said it. The original trilogy was not perfect either. So, anyway, Ben Quadranaros and Otaga 222. This one sold for 83.50 pounds, which is 105 US dollars. Another big number relative to what this one goes for here in the US. It just seems like a really big number. He also had the Gungan Warrior, which I would argue that this is probably the closest to fair market value, at least from what we see here in the US. The Gungan Warrior has definitely jumped up, even here in the US, and it's probably not a good time to grab it, especially leading up to the Phantom Menace, and that's maybe probably why some of these have jumped up a little bit is that the Phantom Menace got announced that it's coming back to theaters in May, and maybe the nostalgia kicked in for collectors, and so they picked up some of the holes in their collection and buy it now situation. So just some guessing on my part. This one sold for 89 pounds, which is 112 US dollars. And again, that's pretty close to where these are selling here in the US. Again, that was the Eurozone version. Also, the Eurozone version of Aura Singh from the Phantom Menace, 145 pounds on that one, which is 183 US dollars. That's a lot big. That's a lot more than even what they sell for here. 120 to 140 in the US for the US card. Again, these were all Eurozone card backs, so maybe it's variant collectors, maybe it's nostalgia for the Phantom Menace, or maybe these are just characters that are creeping up in price. But I think that these are kind of examples of figures that I'd maybe stay away from for a little while until things settle down a little bit. Bastilla Shan is another one, and this dates back to 2 or 3 or 4 different market updates ago. She continues to kind of creep up in price. This one was for sale up in Canada. This was the Canadian version, in all fairness. And I can see the appeal there, and I can understand why you'd want to pay up for the Canadian version, because for every 10 of the US, there's only 1 Canadian that was released, and it is a true different card. It's not just stickers over the top of the US card like the Eurozone version is. And this one was not perfect. It had some edge wear to it, but it's a true different card in terms of what's printed on the card on the front and the back, with the multi-language warnings and the age up in the top left, unpunched. And this one sold for 190 Canadian, which is 141 US dollars. And you know, again, this one did also have a price sticker on the front of the bubble there, and I think you can take that off. But I'm just trying to point out that, you know, these are all characters that seem to be on the rise in terms of price, and maybe stay away from them for a little while if you're still filling in holes in your collection. Next up, Kit Fisto is another one that we've seen for a little while now, continues to go up in price. This one was the US card, VC29, VC29. And this one had some light edge wear, a little bit of wave to the card, but still a very nice example. And this one sold for 125 pounds, which is 157 US dollars. So usually not that high here in the US, 125, maybe up to 140 here in the US, but that's one that kind of got low. You got below $100 for a little while, even near mint examples, and now it's kind of bounced off those lows, and that seems to be the case for all the ones I've just mentioned. Now to some good deals. This one was an auction, and again, I always talk about this. If it's not like life or death and you absolutely have to have it, wait for the auctions, because the auctions do come. All right, they always come for anything in vintage collection. I don't care what it is. And I think that the Shock Trooper is a very desirable card. I know that the figure mold is a little outdated. He's got some really long legs there. Kind of a goofy looking character mold, but the card back is awesome. This one was unpunched. Again, the US card in great shape. This one sold in an auction for $86, which that's probably about $20 or $30 less, maybe even $40 less than where they usually sell and buy it now situation. So if you can wait for those auctions, there are some good deals out there. VC 110 on the US card. Here was one I did send out to my Patreon supporters, and Mike C., a buddy of mine, did pick this one up. This was the Canadian Revenge of the Jedi Offerless Stormtrooper. So this is the SDCC box set version, except this is the Canadian card back. So I thought this was a particularly good deal at $80. I mean, you do see this one sell for just the US card for this price or more in near mint plus condition like this. So to get the Canadian version, which is much more rare, again, one of these for every 10 of the US versions, to get that for $80, I thought that was a good deal, and congrats to Mike on that one. Here's another one I sent out to my Patreon supporters, VC 111, I believe. VC 111, Princess Leia Bespin outfit. I thought this card looked to be in really great shape, and, you know, unpunched US card, $90 plus $8 shipping. This is one that's historically $100 to $120 pretty regularly. So when I saw that one get listed for $90, I did send that out to my Patreons as well, and they snapped that one up. Next up, we've got some Boba Fett's. I do feel like Boba Fett is kind of like maybe bounced off the lows. VC61, the prototype Fett. For the longest time, this one, it was kind of really expensive, and then it dropped below $100. You could pick this up for like $75 a few months ago. It seems to have bounced off a little bit off those lows. This one sold for $102.50, so it's come back up just a little bit. This one sold for 199 Australian dollars, which is 130 US. So 100 to 130 seems to be the going rate. This one looked to be in a little bit cleaner condition than the one I just showed you. So I don't think it was a terrible overbid by any means. And this one also did include the mailer box. I'm assuming that this is what was actually included in the sale and not just kind of press release photos type things. But again, that one was down in Australia, 130 US dollars for that one. Here was a Revenge of the Jedi that I sent out. This might have taken the cake for the fastest buy it now alert sale. I sent this out to my to my Patreon supporters as a buy it now, and it sold within like 7 seconds. I couldn't believe it. This was the retail release version of the Revenge of the Jedi Boba Fett with the prototype Fett offer sticker. Unpunched, beautiful card. Everything was in really great shape. It sold for $100, which I thought was a good deal. I mean, to me, that's a price I'd pay in a heartbeat. And I guess someone else agreed with me that watches my channel. So congrats on that. But yeah, that one's the retail release since it does have the paperwork inside the blister as well as the offer sticker. So just wanted to show that one. Another one that it's all over the place in terms of price. I was a little questioning on this one. This was, again, the retail release Revenge of the Jedi Princess Leia. It was listed for $359. And it was kind of unpunched, but it looks to me, maybe it's just me, okay? But it looks to me like the hanger tab was put back in to make it look like it was unpunched. I mean, maybe it's just me, but right here you can see where it's kind of, and it could be partially still in there, but to me it looks like it was kind of pushed back in there. If you happen to be the person that bought that, I would love to know. But, right here you can kind of see a little bit more edge to where that hang tab is. And then on the back, it's kind of like off kilter right here. And again, I understand that, sometimes it's partially unpunched, which is what I like to call it. So that could be the case with this one. I'm not trying to accuse the seller of anything. But sometimes some sellers do put the tab back in and try to pretend that it's unpunched. So we talked about that last week with the Clone Commander Cody, that the market seemed to agree with me that it didn't look all the way like an unpunched, and it sold for a fraction of what a usual unpunched Clone Commander Cody sells for. This one did sell for $359, so that's a big price, but I think that if it's truly an unpunched or partially unpunched, as I like to call it, I've certainly seen more expensive ones, and this card was not perfect. It did have some issues to it, very light edge wear to it, probably about 85 grade, 85 plus grade, but $359 took that one home plus $2 shipping. Next up, we're going to get back to Yoda in a little while. We're going to get back to him, but this is the VC20 Revenge of the Sith version of Yoda. We're going to talk more about the GRAIL version of Yoda in just a second, but this one sold over in the UK for 80 pounds, which is 101 US dollars, about right, about where they sell for here in the US too. $100, $110 seems to be about right for that one. This one looked like it might have had some edge wear on the left-hand side, so make sure you zoom in on those photos. Make sure you know what you're getting. You're okay with the condition you're getting. I would argue you could probably spend that kind of money on this VC20 and get one in better condition, but that's just me. It's not like the seller was trying to hide anything. He showed plenty of photos, but make sure that you're okay with the condition when you're buying some of these, because I would argue that you could probably get one in slightly better shape for the same price. We've got a graded Ahsoka. This is the US card, I believe. Let's see here. This one was the US card, original issue, VC102 Ahsoka, unpunched. And this one was graded UKG 90%. It sold for 400 euros, which is 430 US dollars. So Ahsoka's kind of a weird one, right? The original issue we've seen as low as 150, 175 lately, and then we've seen high grade examples like this that have sold as high as 430. So obviously condition matters, but it's all kind of pick your poison in terms of what you want to do with Ahsoka on the original card. It seems like now's a pretty good time to get it. She might have bounced off the lows, so to speak, but I still think 175 to 225 for an unpunched original issue VC102 Ahsoka is certainly doable in the current environment. But if you want a high grade one like this UKG 90%, you got to pay the piper for it. This one again sold for 400 euros. And we got some vehicles. This is the multi-language name pill version, and I don't think that's the case for all of these Luke Skywalker X-Wings. I could be incorrect. I didn't double check it versus some of the archives, but this one I think is different than what we got here in the U.S. I could be wrong, okay? It could be the same thing here in the U.S., but this is a multi-language name pill for Luke Skywalker's X-Wing, and it sold for $225 plus $18 shipping. Also, I've got two different data points for the Empire Strikes Back packaging Toys R Us exclusive AT-AT. And this one sold for $850. This is one that was not perfect. It had some dings in the upper left-hand corner, like you see there, and also in the lower right-hand corner. So, again, not perfect. You can see some big scratches or tears going on right there. Still sold. Still, despite those issues, still sold for $850. That is on the upswing. Try to avoid buying that right now unless you got some deep pockets because it's very expensive. Here was another one that sold. This one was over in the UK. It was listed for £750. The best offer accepted on that was £700, which equates to $884. So it doesn't matter if it's in the US or if you're on the other side of the pond in the UK, $800 to $900 seems to be the going rate right now anyway for the all-terrain armored transport with the Empire Strikes Back packaging, the Toys R Us exclusive. Next up, quick data point on the Razor Crest mint and seal box. Not a perfect box. You can see a big ding on the box there. That one still sold for $580. I think you can probably get it cheaper with a box in better condition, but $580 did take that one home free shipping. Now we got the big boys. All right, it's time to talk about the Grails. For those of you TVC Grail hunters, I've got some more data points for those of you out there looking. Here is Jar Jar Binks in Carbonite. This is from that octagonal SDCC box set with the Lost line. Very nice looking card, maybe a little card curl to it, but overall great shape. This one sold over in Germany. It was listed for 600 euros as a starting bid price in an auction. One bid, and it sold for 647 US dollars or 600 euros. So the starting bid did take that one home for an unpunched Jar Jar Binks in Carbonite. Now we've got the big one. This one I did send out to my Patreon supporters. I don't know if one of them bought it, but it did sell very quickly after I sent it out in a buy it now alert to my Patreon supporters. This is one of the Grails from retail releases for the Vintage Collection. Obviously the VC20 Canadian Yoda with the multi-language name pill. So there's that multi-language name pill there with the alternate card image. And this is a very desirable variant, and it was unpunched. Now, you got to remember that this time, maybe about a year and a half ago, this was going for over $2,000. It really was. It's crazy. I think the highest I remember, and don't quote me on this, but I think the highest number I remember, an unpunched VC20 Canadian Yoda, and albeit it was graded, okay? It was graded, so full disclosure on that. It sold for $2,800 plus, $2,800. So here we go. We've got a really nice, clean one, unpunched on the Canadian card, and it was listed for $1,000. So when I saw it, I sent it out to my Patreons. I said, hey, it's got a make an offer option on there. For those of you looking for it, go for it. And it did sell very quickly thereafter. I'm talking less than 30 minutes. And it was listed again for $1,000. The best offer accepted was $700 US dollars, $700. So they took 30% off of that price. Great deal on that. I found one other data point from a couple of weeks ago that was $800. So it's on the way down. It's on the way down at $700 for an unpunched example of the Canadian Yoda. So to me, this is me personally speaking, I think that now's a really good time to pick it up. I know that's a lot of money, but for those of you that have that kind of money and this was kind of like your Grail item, to me, the timing is perfect. You got to remember, this was over $2,000 regularly ungraded, as high as $2,800 graded. To me, if you can find another listing like this where a seller's willing to work with you on the price and it's listed for $1,000 and they come off $300, 30% off the price, now's a great time to pick it up. So be on the lookout for it. And of course, I'm going to be on the lookout for my Patreon supporters, and I hope that one of them got it because I do have a lot of Vintage Collection collectors that are Patreon supporters. So it would melt my heart with very much happiness, big happiness, if one of my Patreon supporters was able to get this one for $700 US dollars when the high prices were at $2,000 about 16 to 18 months ago. So congrats whoever got that one. Next up was a Salacious Crumb, unpunched and in pretty good shape overall, just light edge wear to it. That one is on the way out. This is one that's the exact opposite of the Canadian VC20 Yoda. I'd probably stay away from Salacious Crumb right now because I think this one's going to come down in price. They've already talked about this, of re-releasing this one on a small card back, just like this one. I think this one's going to go nowhere but down. I'm sorry, but that's been the consistent historic thing with everything. VC102, Ahsoka. We had the Expanded Universe Republic Trooper. We've had so many different examples of figures. Weequay, just the standard Weequay is another good example. Star Killer. We've had so many examples of where the reissue comes out and the original drops like a rock. Now, this one is a little different. I admit that, okay? This one was in the SDCC box set, which we're going to get to in a second. But I still think that Salacious Crumb getting reissued, which is coming, right? They've already announced that. I just find it hard to believe that it's going to hold a $1,500 price point after it gets re-released. I don't see it happening because for every collector that wants the original issue, right? We all know that those collectors are out there. There's 15 or 20 others who can't afford $1,500. They're not going to spend that. So I think that as that buyer pool dwindles, it's a supply and demand issue. And the supply of these original issue Salacious Crumbs are going to outpace the buyers that are willing to pay a $1,500 number for it. I'm just guessing, okay? I could be a year or two from now, after the Salacious Crumb reissue happens, and we get to see more data points of what the original issue goes for, I could be proven totally incorrect, okay? But in my opinion, this is one to stay away from when it comes to the Grails, okay? So I would stick with your VC20 Yoda. That's where I'd spend my money. I'd spend $900 to $1,000 on one of those instead of $1,500 on Salacious Crumb. And plus, I mean, no offense to Salacious Crumb, this is a better deal. I mean, this is a better item, right? It's an alternate image. It's a multi-language name pill. There's less of these out there, most likely. I'm guessing, again. It's an SDCC exclusive, so maybe I'm wrong. But, you know, for every 10 of the U.S. cards, VC20, Revenge of the Sith Yodas, you know, one of these Canadians got it made, and probably even less than that because it was an alternate card image. Maybe I'm wrong. But to me, that's a better investment of your money versus the Salacious Crumb at $1,500. That's too much money to me. All right, finally, I wanted to talk about the SDCC box set from 2011. This one was complete with the Mouse Droid and Salacious. This one, so now here's another thing. Here's another thing about dropping $1,500 on Salacious Crumb. This is the entire box set. The entire box set. This one was listed for $2,200 and it sold for $1,750. This entire box set sold for $1,750 plus $100 shipping. That's $1,850. $1,850 for the entire box set versus $1,500 for just Salacious Crumb. That's insanity. Buy this box set and you could sell off everything else and get your Salacious Crumb for close to free is my guess. So again, this is another reason why is you can buy these box sets for not much more money. Again, it was listed for $2,200. It sold for $1,750. I found two other data points that are older for the SDCC box set. The oldest data point was 2025. The second oldest data point was 1925. Now you have this one that just sold at $1,750. So in the last 3 months, it's gone from 2025 to 1925 to $1,750. That's a massive drop. That's a massive drop percentage-wise, right? And the fact that you can buy this box set, I mean, you could sell the Mouse Droid for what? Conservatively, what, $600 or $800 minimum? You could sell these Revenge of the Jedi offer lists for what, minimum $100 each, plus VC64 for $300 or $400. So to me, it's insanity to spend that on a Salacious Crumb when you can buy this whole box set like this buyer just did for not much more. So anyway, just some thoughts on some of the Grails out there and how to spend your money wisely in a down market. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll be back soon.